Welcome to a deep dive into a topic that's both ancient and surprisingly relevant, even today, demonology.
Okay.
Um, you've provided us with excerpts from The Devil and His Origin
Right.
by Moncure D. Conway.
Yeah.
So it's clear you're ready to explore the historical and cultural roots of how we went from
Yeah.
worshiping nature to fearing devils.
Indeed. Conway's work offers a fascinating lens through which we can examine the evolution of belief systems and the very nature of good and evil.
Okay, so before we descend into the fiery depths of demonology,
Okay.
maybe we could start with how the concept of a devil even came about.
It's a fascinating journey that takes us back to the very roots of language itself. The word devil, surprisingly enough, shares a common ancestor with the word divine.
Really?
Both stem from the Proto-Indo-European word deos,
Uh-huh.
meaning God or shining.
Hold on.
Yeah.
So the same root that gives us words like deus and deity also gives us devil.
It does.
That's a twist.
It is, isn't it? And it speaks to the fluidity of these concepts, how what was once revered could later be demonized.
Wow.
Conway points to the term deva, which is related to deus and means God in Sanskrit.
Okay.
In Hinduism, devas are benevolent deities often associated with nature, but in Zoroastrianism, an ancient Persian religion, the term deva is used to refer to demonic entities.
So it's almost like a conquering force coming in and saying,
Right.
hey, your gods are evil.
Precisely, Zoroastrianism, as described by Conway, offers a prime example of how power dynamics influence belief systems.
Okay.
When a new religion or a new cultural force gains dominance, there's often a tendency to demonize the deities and beliefs of those they conquer. It's a way of solidifying their own power and discrediting the old ways.
That's a really interesting point. It's like rewriting history with a demonic twist.
Right.
And speaking of twists, Conway also talks about how something as fundamental as geography played a role in shaping these demonic beliefs.
Yeah, absolutely. Imagine yourself as someone living centuries ago, facing the raw, untamed power of nature with little understanding of its forces. You might start seeing demons in the crashing waves, the howling winds, or the tremors of the earth.
It makes sense when you put it like that. I mean, those were the days when people didn't have fancy weather apps to warn them about impending doom.
Exactly. And Conway provides a very vivid example of this with the Strudel and Wurbel whirlpools on the Danube River.
Okay.
These whirlpools were notoriously treacherous, often claiming the lives of those who dared to navigate their waters.
So naturally, people started seeing demonic forces at play.
Precisely. These natural phenomena, these geographical obstacles, became intertwined with fear and superstition. They became tangible representations of the unknown, the uncontrollable forces that could spell disaster for those who crossed their path.
It's fascinating how our ancestors tried to make sense of their world and their place in it by projecting their fears and anxieties onto the unknown. So far, we've talked about how the very idea of a devil might be rooted in these like ancient power struggles.
Right.
And how the untamed forces of nature often became personified as demonic.
Yeah.
But what about the animal kingdom?
Well,
Conway seems to suggest that animals played a pretty significant role in the evolution of demonology, too.
animals with their distinct behaviors and often fearsome capabilities have always captivated the human imagination. It's no surprise that they became imbued with symbolic meaning, often serving as vessels for our deepest fears and anxieties.
So it wasn't just about like encountering a scary bear in the woods.
Not at all. It goes much deeper than that.
Okay.
Conway explores how specific animals took on particularly demonic significance in different cultures. Take the fox, for example, known for its cunning and elusiveness. The fox became a symbol of trickery and deceit in many cultures.
Right.
Think about how often you see the fox depicted as like a sly con artist in folklore and mythology.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's always something a bit mischievous, a bit untrustworthy about the fox in those old stories.
Exactly. Conway provides a particularly vivid example from Japanese folklore.
Okay.
The kitsune.
Okay.
Kitsune are fox spirits, often depicted as powerful shapeshifters who use their wiles to lure unsuspecting humans into dangerous situations.
Wow.
They embody the fear of being deceived, of being led astray by something that appears harmless on the surface.
That's a great example. And speaking of creatures that blur the lines between the human and the animal, Conway also delves into the werewolf myth.
Right.
Now, that's a creature that definitely taps into some primal fears.
The werewolf, existing on that razor's edge between humanity and animalistic fury, is a potent symbol found in cultures around the world.
Yeah.
It represents the fear of losing control, of being consumed by our darker, more primal instincts.
It's almost like the werewolf embodies the fear of becoming something monstrous,
Yeah.
something that defies the boundaries of nature as we understand it.
Right.
But shifting gears a bit, let's talk about a creature that takes on a more majestic, even awe-inspiring role in demonology, the dragon.
The dragon is truly a fascinating case study in the evolution of demonic symbolism. In some cultures, dragons were revered as powerful, benevolent beings associated with good fortune and wisdom.
Okay.
But in others, they became symbols of chaos and destruction, often representing the untamed forces of nature.
So how did the dragon go from being a symbol of good luck to the ultimate fire-breathing beast?
It's a gradual evolution reflecting shifting cultural beliefs and anxieties.
Okay.
Conway highlights the legend of the lambton worm, a creature that starts small and seemingly harmless, but grows to an enormous size, terrorizing the countryside.
It's almost like a cautionary tale about underestimating small problems, about how even something seemingly insignificant can spiral out of control.
Precisely. The dragon in this context represents the ever-present potential for chaos and destruction, the lurking threat that can emerge from the shadows and disrupt the established order.
Wow.
But beyond external threats, the dragon also comes to represent internal struggles, the battles we face within ourselves.
That's such an interesting point. So it's not just about dragons and whirlpools and mischievous foxes. It's about how these creatures became metaphors for the very human struggles we all face.
Right.
But so far, we've mainly been talking about malevolent male figures and monstrous beasts.
Right.
What about the feminine? What role did female figures play in this whole demonology saga?
That's a question that Conway explores in fascinating depth.
Okay.
You see, the demonization of female figures often reveals deep-seated anxieties about female power, sexuality, and independence, particularly within patriarchal societies.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
Take Lilith, for example. According to Jewish folklore, Lilith was Adam's first wife created equal to him.
Sure.
However, she refused to submit to his authority and eventually fled the Garden of Eden.
So she was demonized for wanting equality, for asserting her independence.
Precisely, Lilith becomes this embodiment of female rebellion, a figure both alluring and dangerous who threatens the established order. She challenges the very foundations of patriarchy and, in doing so, becomes a target for demonization.
And then there's Eve, who, even though she's often depicted as more submissive than Lilith, still gets blamed for tempting Adam with the forbidden fruit.
Both Lilith and Eve, though representing different aspects of femininity, become entangled in this web of anxiety surrounding female power and temptation. They are blamed for seducing men, for leading them astray, for possessing knowledge that should be kept hidden.
It's almost as if they are being punished for their curiosity, for their desire for knowledge, and for their refusal to conform to societal expectations.
Right.
But shifting our focus again, I'd love to delve into the figure who perhaps embodies the concept of evil better than any other, Satan.
Ah, yes, Satan, the ultimate adversary. His emergence as a centralized figure of evil marks a significant shift in the history of demonology.
Okay.
It's a move away from the fragmented, localized demons of earlier belief systems toward a singular, all-powerful embodiment of evil.
So instead of having a whole bunch of little demons causing mischief, you have this one big bad boss demon.
Exactly. And Conway highlights how this shift is reflected in the Bible, particularly in the book of Job.
Okay.
In this book, Satan isn't some malevolent force lurking in the shadows. He's more like a prosecutor, a tester of faith who operates with God's permission.
So even Satan in this context is part of a larger cosmic order.
Precisely. And this raises some really interesting questions about the nature of good and evil, about free will and divine purpose.
Right.
It suggests that even evil, in a sense, serves a role in God's plan.
That's a pretty complex concept.
Yeah.
But before we get too lost in theological debates, I'd like to circle back to something we touched on earlier, the idea of temptation.
It's a recurring theme in demonology, isn't it? This idea that even the most righteous individuals, like Buddha's Zoroaster Jesus, were subjected to temptations by demonic forces.
It's almost like a universal test, a rite of passage for those striving for enlightenment or spiritual growth.
Right.
But why do you think temptation plays such a central role in these narratives?
Well, it seems temptation serves as a powerful narrative device to highlight the struggle between our base desires and higher aspirations. It reminds us that even the most enlightened individuals grapple with inner conflict and the allure of the forbidden.
It's a very human experience, isn't it?
Yeah.
We all face temptations, those moments when we have to choose between what's easy and what's right.
Precisely, and often the right path
Right.
isn't always clear.
Yeah.
Conway suggests that even the pursuit of knowledge and progress, something we often consider positive,
Right.
was viewed with suspicion and linked to demonic influence.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
Why would the pursuit of knowledge be seen as potentially dangerous or even demonic?
Knowledge, as you know, has the power to challenge established norms and disrupt the status quo.
Right.
It can question authority, overturn traditions, and expose the flaws in our belief systems for those in power. This can be a very unsettling prospect.
So it's not really about knowledge itself being evil, but about the potential consequences of knowledge, how it might upset those in control.
Exactly. It's about control. Those in power throughout history have often sought to control the flow of information,
Right.
to limit access to knowledge that might undermine their authority.
Okay.
Think about the suppression of scientific discoveries that contradicted religious dogma, or the censorship of political ideas that challenged the ruling class.
It's a pattern that repeats itself throughout history, isn't it? The attempt to suppress knowledge that threatens the existing power structures.
Yeah.
And in a way, isn't that one of the central themes of demonology itself?
You sure?
The fear of the unknown, the unsettling, the things that challenge our comfortable assumptions about the world.
You've hit upon a crucial point. Demonology at its core often reflects our deepest fears and anxieties about the world and our place within it.
Right.
These fears can be manipulated, used to control populations through fear of the other, the demonic.
It's a sobering thought, but also an empowering one.
Yeah.
By understanding how these narratives of fear and demonization have been used throughout history, we can better equip ourselves to critically examine the information we encounter today. We can learn to question those who claim to have a monopoly on truth, or who demonize those who hold different beliefs.
Precisely. Just as the dragon in Conway's examples could represent both external threats and internal struggles, our exploration of demonology reveals not only the historical and cultural forces that shaped these beliefs, but also the enduring human tendencies they reflect. It's a reminder that the battle between knowledge and ignorance, between understanding and fear, is an ongoing process, one that plays out both within ourselves and in the world around us.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of demonology, what's the key takeaway you hope our listener walks away with?
Simply, this never stop questioning, never stop seeking knowledge, even when it challenges your preconceived notions or forces you to confront uncomfortable truths. The journey of understanding is often fraught with challenges, twists and turns, but it's a journey well worth taking.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll leave you, dear listener, to ponder the complex and often contradictory world of demonology. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive.